How you doing, YouTube? Today, what we're going to talk about is reservation of constitutional rights. Okay, so a constitutional right is an exercise of a God given to you by God, and that right doesn't have to do with commerce. You separate it from commerce because the government can only regulate commerce. So, the way to reserve your rights in every contract, it would be that you will write without prejudice UCC 1-308. So under the Uniform Commercial Code, which is the bylaws, the constitution for commercial transactions, states that the rights that you have before entering into the contract are strictly reserved. So the right to bear arms, the right to travel, those are two examples. The right to family integrity, these are rights secured to you by the Constitution. So now, when you enter into a contract, meaning like a bank account, a driver's license, a working license, of putting your kids in school, birth certificates, and all that, always get the birth certificate for your kids. Always get them. But you have to write without prejudice UCC 1-308. So now, what you're doing is you're reserving the rights that you had previously before you entered the contract. Okay? So when you enter into a contract, a birth certificate for your children, now the government is the one becoming Uncle Sam or Big Daddy, Big Brother, Big Sister, because then they tell you what you can and you cannot do. They want to take your children, CPS, and all that. So you want to refrain from losing your constitutional rights. So wherever you sign something, remember, banks that's a maritime contract. The birth certificate, it's two. It's you're an American citizen, which is not a U.S. citizen. People get that confused a lot. I'm gonna try to make another video on that. Okay, so you're an American citizen and you sign the birth certificate saying you're born, your child was born here and there. You sign without prejudice UCC 1-308. So you're reserving your common law rights that your children are your property. They're not the government's property, because if you hit and smack your children when he's like 8, 9 years old, you give them a little pow, a little timeout. They tell the school's gonna come and take them, or they're gonna try to take them under the um child care services. Different name for different states, but the rights I'm invoking are usually the same ones in every state, anywhere in the United States, regardless of the law they use. So, reserving rights, including to buying cars, anything with the banks, like cars, contracts, loans, schools, all that is related to a bank. Because sometimes, and most of the times, you have to create a contract because you're not paying in full. And when you paying in full, you're still entering into a contract. So now you gotta abide by that. Now, first, we got to know that the Constitution of the United States is the law of the land, and in there, the real form of payment is gold and silver. Now, that's United States of America. Now, under the United States, they got tender, which is fiat money, which is currency, paper money. So you just got to know the differences, okay? So this way you can understand that you're entering a contract. So a contract, sometimes there's no money involved, but it will be considered a negotiable instrument because you're negotiating something. So you always want to reserve your rights, and that will be without prejudice. So the way I signed it, I signed where I got to sign, and right above it, I write W-O prejudice. That's how I do it. But I'm gonna start adding the UCC 1-308, because some of these people, they act like without prejudice, they don't know what it means. They say that, oh well, without prejudice means it's only in relation to the courts that you could bring the suit again, or with prejudice means that you can't bring it up no more. It's beyond that, because if a case gets dismissed with prejudice, you can't bring the case back up. Now, there's times where you say that you were prejudiced by the court. Now, you see they're using it different. Prejudice means that the actions harmed you in some type of fashion, way, or form. So you always want to reserve your rights. So you will write so and so W-O prejudice UCC 1-308. Now the reason is because you're saving your constitutional rights and you're not waiving anything. And the reason you're signing like that is because you're doing it out of convenience, not consideration. Convenience. Well, why did you sign the birth certificate? But apart from the part that they told me that I can't leave without doing a birth certificate that is mandatory, which there's no law that says it's mandatory on, is that this birth certificate not only does it state that my child was born alive. If you look at the type, it says United States of America, so he's an American citizen. It doesn't say United States. It says United States of America, Your Honor. So now, when the states deal individually against other states or against the United States, and it's not commercial in itself, it's considered a sovereign state. But when it comes to commerce, the United States controls all the states on the federal territories. So this is the misconception that people get, that it's all the same, which is not. So we reserved our rights under the Uniform Commercial Code UCC 1-308 under convenience and not consideration, because this instrument, it's long form. It's that my son is or my daughter is born alive. But if we look closely, within a week to a month, there was another birth certificate created, and it's called the short form. And my son's name is all capital. There's something wrong here. Some people argue that straw man this, straw man that. Well, Your Honor, what I'm saying is that for the avoidance of the perjury, the grammar is wrong. Now, all capitals is for dead people. If you go to the tombs, everything's capital letters. And there's somewhere in Title 18 or Title 28 that says that if you switch one letter, it's you're committing fraud. Now, when it comes to the Uniform Commercial Code, if I for some reason put a lien on somebody because they owe me money and I use their regular name as the birth certificate, then the lien is on that. But then if I come and switch it to all capital letters, and when I sue that person and their name is not in all capital letters but only the first letter, then the Uniform Commercial Code is going to consider it seriously misleading. It means that it's not the same person, and therefore I can't securitize my lien over the person that owes me a debt. So the reason that I'm signing like this is to reserve my rights. Out of consideration, no. Out of convenience, yes. Because without this birth certificate, I can't get a passport. And if I can't get a passport, I can use airplanes to travel. I might have to go through sea or drive or travel on my own private automobile. So out of consideration, I signed the birth certificate. Out of consideration, I signed the Social Security, but in the Social Security, I put other because my son is not a United States citizen. He's an American citizen, an American state national, as described in Title 8 USC 1101A21, which says a national is a person owing allegiance to a state. And right now, I don't have the case law, but leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and donate. And I will give you the case that says that a citizen of a state, it says a person may be a citizen of a state, but at the same time may not be a citizen of the United States. Now, I'm establishing the fact that I'm a New Yorker, not New York State under the federal territory, but a New Yorker under the sovereign state in which the people are sovereign. And since I am representing my state in a sovereign capacity, I have judicial immunity or under the 11th Amendment and under Title 50 U 50 USC 7C and 7E, which states that The same as the 11th Amendment, that the judicial power of the Supreme Court should not extend to citizens of different states and etc. I don't have it in mind, but I remember the codes, so I can look up the codes later and have it. And then, because you don't want to say what I'm saying without the code, because then now you have no code backing you up. So you could say, well, Your Honor, yes, I signed that contract, but I didn't agree to abide by the bylaws of that contract, which says that I gotta pay every ticket, or I gotta move my car every morning, including my own property. Sometimes when people come and say I can't park in my own lawn, they come and take my car because they say the Department of Motor Vehicles prohibits this and that. So now, if I sign it under consideration, it means that I agree to it. But if I sign under convenience, it says that I got the license, the state ID. Because if a cop stops me, fine. I don't want to argue with him. I show him that, look, I got it out of convenience. I just give it to him. I show it to him. And then I save the argument for you, Your Honor. Because I'm not going to argue with an armed party. He's not a judge. He probably don't know law. He's just probably enforcing the statutes. I could tell him that I'm one of the people, and he's not going to care less. He's going to say, you here in the streets in New York, you're required to have a license for every automobile or vehicle. But he don't know that automobile and vehicle have two different definitions prescribed by the courts of the United States and the Supreme Court, which a driver is somebody who's paid for hire. Now, when I sign that birth certificate, if I do something to my child that I feel is fit and the prosecutor says it's not, they're going to try to take my child away. So I reserve my rights. Now, the right to family integrity is a constitutional right that says that you can't interfere in this right. And then when you say, well, we have a contract and you agree to the contract, well, under the Uniform Commercial Code, UCC 1-308 says that I'm not required to perform to the bylaws of that contract because I reserved all my rights. And I got it out of convenience, not consideration. So Murdoch versus Pennsylvania clearly states you can't convert my right to be a parent into a privilege, and then you go ahead and take my kid because you're saying I did something wrong. Because I yelled at my kid, because I had my kid face the wall for like 10 minutes in my form of punishing him. You're saying it's cruel and unusual punishment. You're saying that this is welfare endangerment of a child. Well, I disagree, Your Honor. And it is your duty to uphold the Constitution of the United States under Article 6, Paragraph 3. So that's just an example of how you reserve your rights. Now, when it comes to banks, you're dealing with securities and exchange, your contract. When you sign in with the bank is the third party. They're the middle people, because when you buy something and you sell something and you're using a bank card, the card is the third party, it's the bank. So they're instigators. They're basically instigating. They want to get a cut. They want to get PC and all that. Now, when you sign with them to open a bank account, that's a third party, and you entering into a contract, and then they saying that if you took out a credit card, you got to pay you or this, you or that. But in reality, we know that the fiat money, the U.S. dollar, it's a promissory note. If we look at the money itself, it says I promise to pay, but it's used so much that we all rely on it. It's not real gold and silver, Your Honor. Because if this bank says they lend me $100,000 and I challenge them on standing, they don't have standing. And if they, for some reason, the bank, it's a human and he has standing and he's injured, well, the Constitution says that he had to lend me gold and silver, which is the real money, and he didn't lend me any gold or silver. So therefore, he don't have a remedy. Why are we in court? Oh, well, there's a contract. Well, in that contract, I reserved my right before I entered into the contract, into that admiralty maritime jurisdiction. Admiralty maritime jurisdiction is a contract. So the Constitution is also admiralty maritime jurisdiction. Why? Because it's a contract. They say it's the law of the sea, but it usually refers to some type of contract. So when it comes to military tribunals, which is an Article 1 court. That's where the contracts are enforced, which is the criminal courts, surrogates courts, family courts, and all that. So always reserve your rights under the Uniform Commercial Code 1-308. But the Constitution overrides that. But you just, before you get into too much detail for that, you just bring up the code and say, look, that may be a negotiable instrument under the Uniform Commercial Code, but I reserve that right. And I reserve that right because I got that bank account, because if I get paid cash and I can't cash it, the only one to cash it is the bank or some type of financial institution, and then that financial institution will not cash it without me having an ID. So I got a state ID out of convenience. No, I'm sorry, not convenience, out of consideration, and then I open the bank account out of consideration. Because if they got an ATM downstairs, why would I walk a mile when I don't want to walk? Because I just came home from God knows whatever, from the gym, and I'm tired and I need some fun so I could order some food. You see, Your Honor, this is out of, I don't know why that word keeps leaving me, out of not consideration, but out of convenience. And that's that. So this is how you reserve your rights in every contract. So every time you're getting sued by some type of company, they're gonna refer to some type of liens. Liens are filed in two ways: non-UCC and UCC. But either way, you always want to reserve your rights. Now, when they come and they saying that they made a contract with you, in the lien, you will see that says that it's your property, but they drew all that money. So if it's my property, Your Honor, this lien is incorrect because it's saying that it's my property, but how they trying to charge me for something that's mine? If it's mine and it's not theirs, where's the standing? How are they injured? See, you can attack it many different ways. So this is in regards to reserving your rights before entering into a contract. And contracts are birth certificates, banks, passports, IDs, many other things, with companies from the government, even non-companies, where they put like a lien for like maybe say somebody try to fix something in your house and all that. So just something to keep in mind. Thank you.